Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Innovation Talk Let's Exchange series. I'm Yvonne Valdez, Vice President Global Sales, Cloud Service Provider segment at Schneider Electric, and I'll be your host for today's session. As everyone has been living through these unusual times, we have all been seeing the world changing at a new pace. The surge in edge data center is the result of the rapid pace of digital innovations, IoT, big data, artificial intelligence. This is the result of this fast-paced environment that we're in, and it's heavily reliant on data centers to produce, process, and store huge amounts of information. Data is everywhere today. We have nearly 10x more connected things than connected people in the world. IDC predicts that the big data expects more than 5x the rise of generated data from 33 zettabytes to 175 zettabytes by 2025. With that amount of data, the question is, how can data centers build, operate, maintain robust, resilient infrastructures that are up to the challenge? Data centers are enabling the digital transformation. They are the backbone, the foundation of many industries' digital shift. This includes collecting and hosting everyone's data, but what about, remember the safety talk at the beginning of the plane trip? The attendant tells you, put on your mask before helping others. Well, it is the same here. How can data centers implement efficient digital strategies to holistically manage this amount of data in a meaningful and efficient way? For this, let's welcome our experts that are here today to talk about current landscape of this industry, share tips and testimonials. I have with me Mark Bittinger, Schneider Electric Cloud and Service Provider Segment President, Rashesh Modi, AVEVA Head of Monitoring and Control Business, and our distinguished guests and customer, Craig Pennington, Equinix Global Design Vice President. You can use the chat function during the session to ask your questions, and our experts are here to answer them. We'll also be taking questions at the end. So Mark, I'd like to start with yourself. What are the challenges that we are facing today in the data center field that are driving the need for digital transformation?
Well, greetings, everyone. Thanks, Yvonne. I'll tackle that in basically three dimensions. Certainly, the growth that Yvonne referred to, coupled with point number two, a growing need to drive more efficiency, capability out of the power envelope by reducing your OpEx. And then third, as we're clearly seeing the last couple months or so, the need for more remote management while increasing the overall business continuity of your envelope or your fleet of assets. So as Yvonne mentioned, the health of the industry is very strong. Many of our customers today are coming at us in double-digit growth. The recent COVID-19 pandemic has not changed the direction or strategy of the data center infrastructure as a whole, maybe perhaps even embraced the digital transformation as being part of critical to the day-to-day operation from a backbone perspective. So to the growth is coming in various forms depending upon the type of internet giant or co-location provider. It could be coming in terms of greenfield, brownfield, repurposing an existing facility altogether. The growth could be coming from, as the tier one markets become more saturated, more clients and users are going to a tier two, tier three, moving from more of a local to a regional, global. And the merger and acquisition health of our industry maintains to be strong as well. So keeping up with the growth itself becomes quite a challenge. But then if we try and get in front of that, the need for visibility is going to drive a different degree and critical need for standardization. So all of this really creates a different need for management and visibility across the fleet of your data centers. Which brings me to the second point of the ever-growing, ever-present trend of driving efficiencies while reducing your OpEx. In many discussions with a lot of our clients, they are either in a 2 to 3 year journey or they're beginning one where they're expecting to grow their footprint 2 to 3 times what they exist today. And this has to be done with a more efficient, more resilient footprint as well. Which brings then, if we bring in this growing geophysical dispersion as we go from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 markets, we need to increase the ability to remote manage while having real-time services in place that drive a more resilient, addressing the need of business continuity. So I think from that standpoint, then those are the 3 critical factors that I think we'll focus on in today's conversation.
Thank you, Mark. Rashesh, what are the top 3 immediate needs to respond to these challenges?
Excellent. Great, very good question. So thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it. And as Mark laid out all those challenges, so first thing I look at is visibility, because visibility drives performance. So if I have a holistic view of all the assets you have, all the equipments I have, then I can say, how am I doing today? If I'm a data center operator, how am I doing performance-wise, from power consumption-wise? Or what do I need to do it to get me back to the plan? Those are the 2 very good questions. So if you look at this, the hyperscale data centers, the large colo data centers, they have a number of different assets. We call it asset value chain. You have security, power, management, the cooling, all of the different systems. Can I get, instead of 10 different screens, can I get all this in one place so I can see and compare results part of it? Second is, once you have visibility, then you can improve performance, you can improve efficiency, you can improve power management and uptime and all of the different aspects of it. So that's the first thing, visibility. Second area is about standardization. When you are running a fleet of data centers, 10 data centers, 50 data centers, 100 data centers, it'll be very important to have a standardization. If I have the user interface is standardized, if I have processes are standardized, procedures are standardized, then I can collaborate among the experts. I can have operations, can compare contrast between 2 data centers. I can have all the way, this standardization will help managing it, maintaining it, and in financial matrix you can compare also. And if I'm a builder building a new greenfield sites, I can concurrently executing 10, 20 different projects. If I have templates of data centers, it helps me manage the risk, drive the operations and the maintenance part as well. Third area, Mark also mentioned about remote operations and collaborations, because working today is different. You have people working from home, you got less staff on the data center floor. So how do you provide information to the right person? Because the ultimately goal is provide the right information to right person with right context so he can make the right decisions as well. So giving all those operations and maintenance and financial people all the data necessary at the right location. And on top of that, if we can allow the collaboration aspect of it, so expertise is derived from the different location, that would be very helpful. So I think these 3 areas would be very useful to data center current challenges: visibility, standardization, and remote command controls areas.
So thank you, Rashesh, and keeping with the spirit of 3. So these 3 immediate actions together solve the industry pain points shared by Mark, bring back visibility to the operations, empower an agile workforce. So Craig, you're leading data center design across the globe for Equinix. Equinix has over 200 data centers in 25 countries and 5 continents. Do the challenges we're discussing resonate with you? Question number 1. And what are the challenges you're trying to solve at Equinix today?
So absolutely, the challenges as laid out definitely resonate. They're things that we're as we get into later, trying very specifically to address within Equinix. But as we're trying to expand and meet the needs of our customers, we're addressing many of their issues. Their issues are exactly our issues, which is how do we build it at scale, with dispersion and at intensity. And what do I mean by those? That's how we're thinking in the design and construction field. But so scale would suggest that, hey, we just build big and we make ourselves available at the size and make sure we've got the capacity that our customers need. But that metric has become a lot more complicated. Certainly, at one end of the spectrum, we're now addressing the needs of the hyperscalers, and we're looking at data centers in the 50 to 100 megawatt range. And we're going to market through our new xScale business arm to try and deliver those for those cloud and large-scale hyperscalers. In the middle, we're then doing our standard retail data centers, and so that's in the sort of 20 to 30 kilowatt range. And then we're starting to see the need to also be able to deploy at a very small scale as well, to meet the needs of edge data centers. And so we're having a widening of the requirements and having to work out how to deploy our assets in each market appropriately. And so the second point on that one then is the dispersion, which is fine. We've been in the tier 1 markets for 20 years now, but we're certainly seeing that the needs of our customers are driving us into those tier 2 and tier 3 markets as well. And so we're having to deploy at a much greater rate in a much wider geographical dispersion than we have previously. And then finally, on the intensity, when I joined Equinix 10 years ago, we were maybe running 8 to 10 projects concurrently globally. Now we're in the 40 to 50 projects concurrently globally. And so just being able to keep those going, drive them effectively without significantly increasing the size of teams and the complexity of being able to do that is certainly challenging, and one which comes from addressing that commonality of approach across the entire portfolio.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Craig. So Mark, you mentioned data centers are facing pressure due to their fast growth. Craig talked about deploying 40 to 50 projects simultaneously. What is the essential step to have a resilient data center that is agile, scalable to support customers' changing trends?
In listening to Craig, you hear the word data, data, data. And I think we've all heard this for a couple of years now. Someone recently referred to data as being the new oil, which was offensive to some. But if we look at data as being the new currency, it's something that's reusable. It's something we can learn from. It's something we can create more sustainable and resilient systems from. So the key, as I think Craig was alerting to, was, it's the visibility across the fleet, right? And the ability to make real-time, more informed decisions. So with that being said, I think it starts with your infrastructure. It really depends on how you platform your data across connected products and solutions, across systems and disparate subsystems, bringing this all back together in a very holistic way to really manage an enablement of real-time decisions. I think the speed at which we synthesize this data going forward and act on it becomes a real competitive differentiator, both in terms of your end customer delight from an experience standpoint, and then certainly managing your OpEx theater. So visibility to data across all these subsystems to inform that on-prem he or she data center operator to drive the improvements, make real-time decisions, even start getting into preventative or predictive maintenance. So I think really that the focus has to be on how do we increase our time to decision, right? In order to make the right decision at the right time. And in the end, this has the ultimate impact on resiliency. I think for years, our industry has been very committed to engineering and constructing resiliency up front. But when we get into the true heat of the game, the heat of the life cycle, it really comes down to, do we have enough engineering in our operate and maintain from a resiliency standpoint? So how do we get there? We've all know about the convergence between the IT and OT worlds. And as As we continue to increase its scale, the OT, we really need to make sure we have a wrapper, a system of governance, if you will, around that OT, and that's the software, and that's the topic that we're talking about today. Schneider Electric, through our EcoStruxure, has been built along these connected products in what we refer to as an open and interoperable system architecture. And what we're doing here in its most fundamental form is Schneider's in a unique position to take advantage of our decades-long and deep domain expertise of the three fundamental building blocks inside the data center envelope itself, those being built around IT, power, and buildings. And an example of that is our most recent global award-winning EcoStruxure building operations and our EcoStruxure power monitoring expert, where we take both Schneider and non-Schneider assets and we incorporate a disparate system of data into something that can be synthesized quickly and operated and controlled on site in real time in a local theater. With that, Yvonne, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mark. So it's very clear what we need for resilient data centers is data, 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 and data through connected devices. So Rashesh, collecting and managing one data center is clear, but how do we support customers that are multi-location, multi-sites into a single pane of glass?
Perfect. Excellent discussion about now starting the software side. So you heard the challenges from Mark and Craig, both of them. Now you have edge data center, you got regional data centers, retail data centers, you got hyperscale, and all of these multi-site, data centers, they're built by different contractors. They have a different hardware, and so the first thing is you want to connect all these pieces together, all the OT, IT system together. Second part is once you connect it, you want to collect data, then you want to visualize it, then you want to operate it, put the right procedures and process to it, then you put analytics to it, right? So basically you connect, collect, visualize, operate, analyze it, and ultimately act so that you can improve performance. So that's how the whole software stack lies up. So we have a very unique offering we specifically created for data centers called Unified Operations Center. It provides a single pane of glass and holistic view of all different systems. It connects to all the OT systems. It connects to all the IT system, could be an asset performance management, could be financial system, could be customers SLA, some documentation workflow. It's all connected together. And then it provides data center operator to not only visualize and operate, but then start doing some analytics as well. It can provide the information in whichever the form factor you want, whichever the location you want. So if I'm a central location, I can manage fleet of data center in a centralized way because it offers those three things I mentioned earlier, visibility, standardization, and remote operations. So all those three help customers to make faster decisions, minimize risk, reduce energy consumption, potentially resource efficiency, and optimize overall performance. That's how I look at our Unified Operations Center is rightly designed for managing multiple sites.
Fantastic. So today we collect data, but only 10% of this data is analyzed and used to make smarter business decisions. Craig, your company scaled toward a more efficient data model. How did you get there, and what is the value for you today?
Yeah, so what we're fundamentally trying to do is give our customers a standard, common experience within all of our facilities. And some of our customers have very demanding needs for understanding the data behind the building operation, and some of them, are not quite as exacting. And so over time, as we've been building our data centers, we have in the past addressed every single project individually, and so we've ended up over time with our controls engineers complaining that we have as many different control systems as there are cereal boxes in the world, and that's something that's incredibly hard for them to manage and integrate into a single view which we can present to our customers. When you overlay that, 60% of our revenues are derived from customers who are deployed in all 3 regions of the globe. So for us, EMEA, APAC, and the Americas. It's getting very, very difficult then to get a single portal and display all of that information through a system that we call IBX SmartView, which is the abstraction of all of our DCOS data and presentation for our customers. So as we've scaled, we've had to rethink that and become far more exacting about how we apply our overlay of data management for the data centers and become a lot more prescriptive. And so how have we addressed that? So in the solution implementation, really what we've done is we've standardized a lot on the controls equipment, how we actually take the data from the individual pieces of equipment, and then how do we aggregate all that data using the Schneider EcoStruxure system and lying over that the Wonderware system to aggregate all the data from all of the different data centers. Fundamentally, that's changed the expectations of our controls solutions integrators. We've had to sort of re-educate them that now we're going to be in control of the libraries. We're going to be in control of the way that the data will be presented, and we'll provide that to them. And so we're building up a single global library for the data that we'll extract, the data that's important to us, and then how we will display that either in the SmartView system or through a head-end HMI. And so for our partners, that then means that the integration partners, they're now having to think about, okay, it's a smaller part of the pie because we're getting a lot of these things given to us. We're not being required to think about how we're going to define and produce the HMI, but that pie is now significantly bigger because we're building again that enormous intensity that we're now doing. So it's required us to have a really rigorous approach to the global design. We've worked very closely with our internal experts in Schneider and the equipment vendors to put that overlay on of all of the different HMI interfaces, all of the different points. Take a hard look at how do we integrate our old sites, and also, given that we're quite busy on an M&A perspective as well, how do we incorporate sites where we had nothing to do with the initial design of all of the control systems? And so we've been at this for a couple of years. The first projects under this new structure are currently coming to conclusion, and we seem to be making significant strides in this area, and it's certainly starting to gain momentum with our SI partners. They're getting to understand that this is going to be the new norm for Equinix. So what are we trying to achieve when it comes to that, that UOC and work? So first of all, speed and standardization, absolutely key. Leverage that standard library to make sure that we can, go into new projects and have a very simple way to display the information. Standard interfaces, standard HMI, so our operators can move between sites and not have to learn a completely new system when they're trying to interact with the facilities. And so we think that this approach and this abstraction from individual projects and SIs doing what they thought was necessary for that project to deliver for us, where we're now doing a single global overlay and a single global approach to this, massive increase in speed to market for our new facilities. And certainly, we're talking multiple millions of dollars saved in and streamlining of future projects.
Craig, thank you very much. So it's clear that partnership and collaboration is a critical key to innovation. Mark, how should data centers work with their ecosystem to be successful in this new transformational modernizational model?
Well, we certainly want to help Craig library all those boxes of cereal. So I really think it starts with collaboration. I think this is the innate key ingredient to a customer-centric approach, which I think a lot of companies practice in theory, but deny in practice. So I think it starts with active listening. What is the end client trying to accomplish? And then how do we build a technical solution around that business equation? And then I'm going to throw in the second ingredient there that I feel strongly about, humility. And with that being said, you heard Craig talk about some of his ecosystem of partners. It's something that I believe Schneider Electric has built a best-in-class ecosystem of partners that help drive best-in-class around the 4 domains of the life cycle: design, build, operate, and maintain. Whether that starts with a specifier, a general contractor, an electrical, mechanical contractor, or certainly the system integrator that you heard Craig refer to. It's the ability to bring this ecosystem of actors together with one agenda. And those are the key success factors. And with that in mind, what Schneider Electric has built and delivered recently to the market is something we've referred to as Schneider Electric Exchange. And what this is an open platform for those various actors that I just mentioned to come together in any level of engagement, problems big or small, challenges. But certainly it's the way to connect with your industry peers on whether it's, again, solving a problem or certainly something as simple as partnering with someone for future growth. And I think this collaboration is available. It's something that we just need to choose to reach out and engage with. And I'm hoping that if the technology is working right, you all are seeing a QR code as to where you can find more information about this platform, and certainly some of the EcoStruxure building operations and EcoStruxure power monitoring expert that I referred to earlier. I truly ask you to engage, and I think the journey's up to you at that point.
So thank you, Mark. Rashesh, I believe AVEVA is an active member of the SE Exchange. What is the benefit of joining forces?
Sure. So I think the first thing I'll start with the co-innovation. I think Mark also mentioned, Craig also mentioned, we have a number of different companies and players involved, starting from, driven by customer, you have strategic partners, you have many other vendors, you got system integrators, all of them being connected to do co-innovation. So I think that's a key. This is called absolutely decentralized innovation. Everybody has their expertise, bring together, have a collaboration. So Schneider on the data center side, it is absolutely their expert in building management, power management, and deploying data centers at very fast pace, and particularly the large hyperscale as well. So we as an AVEVA side, we've been working with other industries and other side of the Schneider very well in terms of oil and gas, metal mining, food and beverage, many different industrial operations. We work very closely. Now we are bringing that expertise of running command control center, mission critical application into data center, and leveraging Schneider's expertise and our software power together to solve data center applications and challenges. So it's absolutely leveraging expertise from the both companies for data centers. In terms of Schneider Electric Exchange, it is absolutely perfect platform to collaborate, to coordinate, to do this innovation, right? I mean, our number of our products already in Schneider Electric Exchange, absolutely there. Similarly, we have our own exchange for software partners, system integrators, training, and exchange some solution as well. So collectively, I think this is absolutely very valuable for our users, vendors, and system integrators. So I think this is co-innovation is a number one in this area right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So Craig, how do you stay up to speed with the market best practices to feed your continuous modernization strategy and connected with the right solution providers?
So just like I think like Schneider, there's no secret sauce here. The key things for us are, employ the best talent, be the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers, the architects, the controls engineers. Get the best people working in the organization. We're very fortunate in the fact that, being the scale that we are, anyone who's innovating in the data center space is always very happy and very keen to speak with us. But just because you have a novel and innovative idea doesn't mean necessarily it should be, grabbed straight away. We have to choose the right partners to work with in this space to keep our buildings up and operating, because At the end of the day, once we've constructed these and our customers are in them, we're in there for 15, 20, 30 years. And so the partners need to be there to help us maintain those buildings through that entire time. And then when we're truly looking at innovation, we need to choose where to place all our efforts most effectively. And what's going to be best for us, for our bottom line, for our customers to meet their needs, and also given where we are normally, how do we fit into the community? How do we fit into the local urban landscape and not be seen as a pariah? And so it's really important that we're addressing things like how do we drive the use of renewables and obviously renewable energy as much as possible? How do we reduce our PUE and make our data centers the most efficient that they can possibly be? That integration with the urban landscape is becoming far more prevalent nowadays. How do we use our waste produce, such as heat, which there's plenty of from a data center, in driving perhaps local heating capability? Always been problematic, given the heat can be very, very low grade from a data center, and getting it to the right place. But fitting in is really important now in many locations. And then finally, that entire point, reducing waste, using waste things like heat is one thing, but just making sure that we're not generating lots of landfill and lots of waste out of the data centers. These are all areas where we're spending a lot of time and brain power, and we're being driven very hard by our customers to really think hard about all of these issues.
No, that's fantastic. Sustainability is top of mind, and renewables is top of mind for the whole world. Yeah. So I want to thank the audience. They've been so busy submitting questions. So I've got a question. The first one is for you, Mark, from Quentin. Okay. Is UOC the only option for the enterprise-wide software?
Terrific question, and I hate to be a little cryptic here, but the answer depends. Really, it depends on the size of the fleet, the amount of information that you want to digest, synthesize, and act upon. It also has impact with some of the geophysical dispersion. So if we're talking hundreds of megawatts across the global footprint, yes, we're probably going to go to the UOC model. If we're talking a few data centers in a more finite region, then certainly, as I mentioned, some of the EcoStruxure solutions will be a benefit from a size, fit, and scale standpoint. But the one thing I like about what Schneider Electric has done with AVEVA in this partnership is we have pooled our solution architects from both companies, so we have a very agnostic approach, going back to that active listening. So we're going to have our solution architect pool sitting down with the customer, understanding the requirement, and then building something from that point backwards, not taking something to them in advance. So that's a terrific question.
Thank you, Mark. So the next question is from Lucy for Rashesh. Where else has the AVEVA UOC solution been successful?
Very good question. So as I mentioned earlier, we have tremendous amount of experience in industrial operations. So I'll give you an example in oil and gas. So major oil and gas company in Abu Dhabi, ADNOC, they use Unified Operations Center for managing their 14 different businesses. And they bring all the information together coming from different places, talking about upstream, midstream, power generation, all these aspects in a centralized panorama display. And they are utilizing to making right decision, right moment. Similarly, we have done in South Africa for mining industry. We are doing it for a number of smart cities. So when you look at it, industrial operation, infrastructure operation, where you have many different assets, many different hardware systems. How do you bring all the system together to make it efficient decisions? And in fact, some of the customers have made number of, you're talking about more than 10-15% improvement in operational cost. In fact, panorama display, they have savings, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 18 months. So this is very implemented in a very effective in industrial operations. Absolutely.
So thank you, Rashesh. So the next question is for Craig from Mombro. What other projects are you looking at for across all your data centers, and what's next?
Trying to address all of that scale, dispersion, and intensity. I think the big thing is the standardization of all of the componentry, and then what then is derived from that, what comes from that once you've got that standardization. We can start to automate a lot more of our design and market delivery, so that when we're entering a new market and we're actively looking in. I mean, we just obviously announced our expansion into Mexico. We just announced our further expansion into Canada, and we're continuing to looking in places in Africa. We can start to build all of those data centers completely virtually using the componentry that we have, and get a complete model done, very, very quickly in the electronic space, before we even go and try and work out what it would truly look like on the ground. And then from there, we're looking at augmented reality and virtual reality. Some of it for allowing our sales guys to do those tours a lot more successfully, but really to take everything we're deriving from the initial design and then the setup of the DCOS system and the data that we're getting, make it far more accessible for our operators to be able to walk around that facility, have immediate access to all of that data, be that on a tablet or maybe in the slightly further future, a headset or glasses, and be far more effective as they're trying to manage these facilities. Because as we build this entire data set and this ecosystem, it's immediately available. They can have it at any time. They can consume it in any manner that's necessary to do their jobs most effectively. So it's challenging, but it's very exciting at the same time. And taking that design and construction all the way through to operation, and then through into maybe a further augmentation stage, and second phase of construction, and it's just become this virtuous cycle of using the data most effectively to drive our business forward.
That's great. So Rashesh, back to you from Kimron. How are data centers using data science, artificial intelligence, and machine language to improve operations?
Excellent. I think that's right now very, very important area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what we have done is, I was mentioning before, you connect data, you collect data, you visualize, you operate, but then we have put this AI and machine learning engine in the background and in the cloud, which looks at all this data, because data is coming so much from all the different assets. It provides basically a diagnostic back to operation, and it says, oh, I see this trend which looks really different than normal your operation. Do you really see a problem here? So it gives you anomaly detection or predictive analytics way in advance. In some of the cases, if it's a cooling tower or UPS batteries or whatever the maintenance, you want to get back into prescriptive maintenance and more based on prediction than just doing condition-based monitoring part of it. So it's a very, very AI and ML is playing a major role. At the same time, Craig mentioned about the AR, VR, and XR, mixed reality part of it. You'll be able to use this technology to sitting in headquarters, and I can look at the same data center in Africa with my virtual lens for how they're operating. So I think this technology is playing very important and critical role in this next generation data center resiliency. Absolutely.
So thank you, Rashesh. So Craig, back to you. So this question is from Alexander. Can you talk a little bit more about the challenge of change management in terms of being more prescriptive in the design versus letting every data center decide on their own?
Yes. So I think one of the problems that you end up with this is you do by default end up having to slow down a little bit and be far more exacting. That you start off with a data center version. Let's call it at the moment we're on what we're calling our flexible data center Mark II, FDC Mark II. But to go from there to the Mark III, we need to make sure that is a properly thought through versioned change, so that our vendors, our design partners, our operating team are not seeing piecemeal innovation on a project by project basis, because then they're not getting the advantage of operating multiple facilities at the same, which are running the same way. Our vendors are not getting the advantage of being able to deliver the same equipment repeatedly for multiple jobs, which gives a nice pipeline, which allows us to get very aggressive on pricing and schedule for the delivery of those jobs. And so by default, we have to be very structured in our review of new innovation, decide quite early on, is this something that we truly want to adopt and that we can apply globally? Because in all of the way that my team now works, previously it was very regional. It was what was best for the Europeans, what was best for the Americas. But our customer mix has changed, and they are now truly global customers. We're a global company, and we need to be able to apply, all of that design effort and make sure it truly does fit for the market on a global basis. So it is challenging. It changes the dynamic in the company. We're trying to make sure that we continue to be innovative, but at the same time, do it in a way where we can absorb that innovation without it being disruptive to the individual operating staff or our customers' expectations.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Mark, a question for you from Peter. Mark, so do you validate, so if data is critical in building operations, is it an IT person to manage facilities or facilities to manage IT?
Yeah, so I saw the question come up, and that's been the proverbial debate in the boardroom and in the design room and after work as well for the last 15 years. I think if you listen to both some of the language that Craig and Rashesh used, I heard a lot about virtual reality and artificial intelligence. And I think if you're looking at the amount of data that's going through these data centers today, and the performance that's required as a standalone or as a fleet of enterprise, the answer is clearly both. And I think some of these tools that Rashesh and Craig referred to are allowing both to work together at the same time. And we also mentioned, some of these remote locations, we're going to need to know and depend on more on the IT world to help us manage the physical assets going forward. I don't see anything wrong in that. We've even published a white paper in the last couple of years about the changing face of the co-location provider and what the customer experience is inside of that. I think at the end of the day, whether it's resiliency or just pure performance of your data center, you really need to focus on the capability of your envelope versus the hardware inside the envelope. So I'm going to take the easy way out and say both.
Super, thank you. Rashesh, a question from Hannah. You mentioned some other industries, oil and gas, et cetera. What can data center operations learn from these other industries?
Excellent. So a lot of actually similarities between these industrial operations and the data centers. So if you look at it, mission criticalness. Absolutely, these are mission critical, 99.9999 kind of uptime needed. So absolutely 24/7 by 365. How do you create an operations team and operations system which drives and provides you this high availability, high uptime, high efficiency as well? Second part is the scalability. We can, in industrial operation, you have millions of I/O points connecting, making decision, and operators run it flawlessly 24/7. So similarly, data center, when you run 100 data centers, it's a very similar context. Third thing about people angle, I think creating, as Craig mentioned, about templates and situation awareness graphics, and because you want to avoid fatigue when operators running those data centers, absolutely have exception-based monitoring, right? Just tell me when things are down or tell me much advanced. All those are utilized in our industrial operation. We are bringing all this into our unified operation center. So having the new technology, like AI and ML and XR, VR part of it. Second part is creating this next generation of visualization, providing right information on a right device with the right context, putting processes together. All this experience from industrial operation is right for data centers. And it is absolutely unified operation center allows you to do all of these areas as well.
So I want to take a moment and thank our great speakers, Mark, Rajesh, and Craig. This concludes today's session. Thank you everyone for being with us today. I hope this discussion has been fruitful for you and that you're leaving with some great takeaways. If you'd like to learn more about Schneider's work within data centers, please register for our Industry Insights and Best Practices newsletter. The link will be shared in the chat now. Don't forget that your digital transformation begins today, and to join the Schneider Electric Exchange. To stay connected with your peers, understand the latest trends, get support from experts to scale your business. We will see you in a few weeks to talk about IT and OT convergence through industrial edge computing.